In this example, we're going to learn to round numbers using place value. And here we have a definition of rounding and a procedure we'll use to round. So to round a number means to approximate that number by replacing it with another number that is close in value. Rounding is often used when estimating. So if you bought a stereo, I don't know, do people buy stereos? If you bought a TV for $1,382.73, and your friend asked, how much did you spend on that TV? You'd probably say $1,400. You probably wouldn't say all of this. That would be rounding to the nearest hundred. So this is one way that rounding is really useful. We have a general procedure for rounding, okay? And we're going to go through this process as we solve these problems. We'll refer back to this later, and it's in your packet if you need to see it. So let's look at the first one. Round 483 to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. So there's actually two problems here, and we're given some place value charts to aid our work. But first we're going to look at base blocks. So remember, base blocks, the tens value are rods, the hundreds values are flats. So we can look at a way to visualize this. So here I have a few representations of numbers. This one in the middle, notice it's 1, 2, 3, 4 flats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rods, and 3 ones. So this is 483. Now, if we want to round to the nearest 10, we use rods to represent tens. So the nearest tens place would be the nearest number of rods that we'd want to use. So here, if we're going to use rods, that's going to be the largest number we're going to use. We're not going to use units. So basically what I did here is I dropped the units, and we have 480. And here, I added one more rod than was originally here, and we have 490. So if we're rounding to the nearest tens place, or the nearest rod, 483 lies between 480 and 490. So notice the rods or the tens place differ by 1. And what we want to determine is which one is closer. Are we going to round down to 480, or we're going to round up to 490? Well, in this case, you could see 483 is 3 away from 480 and 7 away from 490. So a better approximation, or a closer value, would be 483. So now let's go back to our chart, see how we do this. So let's get a pen. We'll put 483 in the chart, and we want to round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to circle the tens place, and I'm going to draw an arrow to the right. So remember, the largest place value we want is the place value we're rounding to, the 10. Everything else is going to be zeros. But to determine whether to round up or down, we want to use the number immediately to the right to see if it's closer to 8 tens or 9 tens, like we just did in the picture. Well, since the ones place has a 3, notice that here it says we're going to round down when the place value after the digit we are rounding to is less than 5. So if we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to say it's closer to rounding down to 480. If we have 5 or greater, we're going to round up. And notice 5 is exactly in the middle. If we had a 5 here, it's exactly in the middle of 480 and 490. So it's our convention to round up when we're halfway in the middle like that. Now let's look at the nearest 100. So I'm going to put 483 in our chart. And now we want the smallest place value we're going to use is the hundreds place. And we're going to look at the tens place. So let's just think about this for a minute. If we rounded down, if we kept this the same, we'd have, 400. And if we added 1 to this number, we'd have 500. So 483 is between 400, or 4 flats, and 5 flats. So that's one way to picture this. And maybe you can picture, well, if you had 83, that's 8 rods and 3 units. Is that going to be closer to 400 or 500? So I'll leave that up to you to guess, and let's just look at the procedure and see what we get. Well, here's the hundreds place, there's the 10. The number to the after the digit we are rounding to is 8, which is greater than 5. So in that case, we round up. So rounding up means you add 1 to the place value you're rounding to, so that's 5, and then you replace the remaining numbers with 0. So notice 483 is closer to 5 flats, or 500. So it's 17 away from 500, it's 83 away from 400, so it's closer to 500. Let's look at the next one. We want to round 37 also to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. So I'm going to put 37 in the chart, so that's 3 10s and 7 1s. So if I want to round to the nearest 10, here's the tens place, there's a digit to the right. Remember, I could think of this is more than 3 flats and less than 4 flats, and we want to, not flats, I'm sorry, rods. More than 3 rods, less than 4 rods. Which one is it closer to? So always try to picture these. It can really help you understand it better. Using the process, the digit to the right of the place value we're rounding to is greater than 5. It's actually 7. So that means we add 1 to the place value we're adding to, and everything after that is 0. So to the nearest 10, 37 is 40. Now let's round to the nearest 100. So this may seem odd. Okay, so we want to round this to the nearest 100, but we don't have anything in the hundreds place. We could actually put a 0 here, and this would be equivalent to 37. 0 hundreds, 3 10s, and 7 1s. So we usually don't put zeros there because we could put zeros on forever, and that would just be a way of taking up a lot of space unnecessarily. But as odd as this may seem, since there aren't any hundreds here, let's think about this. Well, 37 is between 0 hundreds, so you don't have any flats, and 1 flat. Or 0 hundreds, which is just 0, or 100, which is 100. Okay. So now, just like we did here, we're going to follow the same process. So it's really useful to go back to this process when you get a problem like this that's a little bit different. Here's our hundreds place. We have a 0. The digit to the right, well, it's 3. And looking up here, when we have 3, we're going to round down. And rounding down means we don't add anything to the place value that we're rounding to, so this stays 0. And then we turn the remaining numbers into zeros. So we have 0, 0, 0, which is just another way of writing 0. So 37 rounded to the nearest 100, is it closer to 0 hundreds or 100? Well, it's closer to 0. So let's just put this in. To the nearest 10, we have 40. To the nearest 100, 37 is 0, or 0 hundreds. And for part A, to the nearest 10, 483 rounds to 480. And to the nearest 100, 483 rounds to 500.